First, thank you, Suenee, for inviting me in this fifth international conference on exopolitics, history, and spirituality. So very interesting topics to talk about. I'm SunBow through brother, my author's name. I've authored 6 books in the last 6 years, and 4 of which are on the topic of Sasquatch. And the first 3 are a series called The Sasquatch Message to Humanity, which tells about my own encounters and experiences, channeled messages. The 3rd volume of that series is a international collaboration of 10 co-authors who also communicate with the Sasquatch. And the 4th book is called Hairy Humanoids from the Wild, Encyclopedia of All Things Sasquatch. That is a very detailed study and profound research on all the literature and all the documented sources about Sasquatch since 5,000 years, including tribal oral traditions and first-hand accounts from witnesses. Which leads us to understand there are paranormal phenomena and psychic phenomena related to those beings we know as Sasquatch or BigFoot, and a variety of other names. So I also manage a website which is called scenicsasquatch.com. Scenic, SCENIC, stands for Sasquatch Close Encounter Network for Interspecies Communication. And there we have nearly 900 posts by now, articles, videos, over 300 first-hand accounts from experiencers. And we work in the disclosure of this information, and we promote a peaceful spiritual approach to interspecies communication. Okay, what brought me to Sasquatch in the first place was first-hand experience. I had heard about it like everybody when I was a teenage and such, but when I turned 17, I went to British Columbia, and we camped in the woods, and we had a close encounter that night. The Sasquatch came and put down our camp, and it took me many years to learn and study with shamanic practices and elders and ceremonies, spiritual teachings, and more experiences before I started to really be able to understand and to communicate with those beings. The ancestral tribal indigenous cultures have a great wealth of knowledge about those beings all around the world. They are the best source of knowledge, as well as first-hand experiencers who have had contacts. So that started me, and again, it took me 33 years on shamanic path and training to be able to interact with paranormal phenomena, psychic phenomena, and to understand the other dimensions and to be ready to start communicating. That was 7 years ago when I started having full conversations with the Sasquatch, and it's been going on since. The tribal people, indigenous cultures, have thousands of years of interaction with those beings. I've been, for me, as a North American, I've been around dozens of native nations from North, Central, and South America that I met elders and took part in ceremonies and received teachings with them. as well as in Australia in 2020 for a year with the Aboriginal people there. And I found the same knowledge. Usually they won't talk about it openly unless you ask, and with a good attitude, with a right approach. You will hear about these things in special medicine circles, ceremonies, sweat lodges, and when Sasquatch is mentioned in those circles, we find out that these elders have a lot of knowledge, first from ancestral oral tradition, but as well with first or second-hand experiences. They often tell you, "Oh, my uncle talks with them," or "Oh, we see them in this mountain here. We hear them often around here." So you realize that this knowledge has been around, has been there, and modern science has a harder time to relate to those beings because of the paranormal and psychic aspects. It takes somewhat spiritual or holistic approach and an understanding of interdimensionality to be able to relate and to understand those beings. Because if we look for a big ape or an unknown primate or a relic hominin, we won't find it, because that's not exactly what they are. They are very advanced psychic beings, spiritually conscious. They also have what we would say supernatural or magical powers, because we have a hard time to understand with our rational mind, but they can communicate through telepathy, as it's the universal language. Many star people communicate this way as well. They also can materialize and dematerialize. They can teleport. They can shapeshift. They can impregnate an environment, like a permeating consciousness, so they can manifest through all kind of elements, whether a cloud or a tree, a rock. They will sometimes show themselves, and that's all the different ways they use to communicate and to teach us about these psychic abilities. Many tribes call them our elders, elder brothers, elder relatives, and they have been here since much longer than us humans. There are proofs of it. We find a lot of petrified, big-sized human footprints in many parts of the world that are dated 200 or 300 million years. So they have been here for much longer than us humans. How do they see us? They see us as their little brothers and sisters. They're younger relatives who have less time in our evolution and history. And how do they treat us? They are the caretakers of the earth, of the natural environment, of the ecosystems, the biodiversity, because a healthy environment is saner, it's better for the soul evolution. So they watch also over the evolution of souls, like all elder race species or relatives from the stars. So they try to assist us to remember we also are the caretakers, and we should act as such. And they also try to remind us about our own spiritual nature and our own psychic abilities, because we all have these natural gifts that we can develop, like telepathy, remote viewing, telekinesis, or all these things that we could develop if we practice and learn how. Mm-hmm. So they're trying to help us to become fully human, the best version of ourselves, as well as to help in caretaking of the environment as well as the soul evolution. So we keep this long-term vision that we have a mission, we have a purpose on it. It is to maintain the balance of life and the growth of consciousness, the healing. Us human beings, we call Homo sapiens nowadays, we have a spliced gene, which is does not happen in nature. It's a proof that we have been modified genetically, and more than once. The Chinese geneticists identified like 265 horizontal genes that were introduced in the human genome. The Sasquatch also have a spliced gene. We know this because there has been a few genetic studies conducted, and namely the Sasquatch Genome Project. It was led for 5 years by Dr. Melba Ketchum and her associates in 6 laboratories in Texas on over 100 samples of Sasquatch DNA. And so we know that they also have been genetically modified. So we are hybrids, and they also are a hybrid. And where does this come from is when an intelligent species comes to a new planet, a young planet, they explore it, and then they might help to develop the environment if it's suited for life. They might introduce species like bacteria, fungi, or that will help create an atmosphere and terraforming. And when there's a suitable environment for intelligent life, they introduce their genetics into an indigenous species. So this is us, Homo sapiens actually, are not only hybrid, but we have been interbred. We have interbred with many other hominins. Mm. We know we have Denisova ancestors. We have Neanderthal, Cro-Magnon, in different proportions depending on the parts of the world. So we are the outcome of all this hybridization. And we are just the latest edition, because the Sasquatch, they've been here, but millions and millions of years before us. So they were, in a way, first humanity. Well, that's why they have 99% the same DNA, the same genes than we humans do. But the 1%, the other 1% is unknown, is alien or something. There are many different types of hairy humanoids. That's how I like to call them in a generic form. That's not the first one we uses. There was in the 60s, there was an international committee of research on hairy humanoids that had members from North America, Canada, Russia, Great Britain, France, and many countries took part in those that international research committee. So hairy humanoids is a term that is like generic to describe all the different types. There are different types. There are very big ones, giant ones. There are some that are human size. There are some that are small, short ones. And we find those all around the world on just about every continent. And every tribe almost has names for them. Just for the Sasquatch, Sasquatch is a name from the Salish people, Salish of British Columbia in Canada, and it became famous worldwide. But every other tribe has different name for them, like Skokum, Siatko, Misabe, Chitanga, all. We could go on and on. There's hundreds, and same in Australia. So when we talk about Yetti in Siberia and Tibet, I think Russia, they also say Yetti a lot. They say snowman. And in China, they say the Yeren. And there's we could name many, in New Zealand, and but there are different types, but it's a bit like us humans. If we ask, like, is a Bushman of Namibia different from a Danish man, or from Australian Aboriginal? Is that different from an African person or a Native American? We sure can see differences in size, in skulls, in physiognomy. It's the same for them, the hairy humanoids, except it's been much longer. We talk about millions, probably hundreds of millions of years of evolution. So they had a much wider diversity of types, of size, and they also have traveled on many planets and lived on many planets. So they have even more opportunity to develop different hybrids and also to interbred with other species. Yeah, it's really what they're looking for. What they're looking for is to communicate with us human as caretakers of this planet and intelligent species. We can say the dominant species on Earth now. It's us. And we have a great influence on the environment and on the course of life and events. So they like to reach out and to communicate, to let us remember, help us remember the wisdom and the universal law of harmony. So I've had, for me, 40 years of contacts, and especially the last 7 years where I was finally ready to go out and talk and meet them face to face sometimes, and receive their message, and they asked me to transmit those messages in books, the Sasquatch Message to Humanity to start with. But I have also had hundreds of people who have told me, who have shared with me that they have had communications with Sasquatch. many of them, after reading my books, for instance, or while reading my books, many people I have assisted to have their first contact, probably over 100 by now, where once you know who they are, how to approach them, and how to connect, it works. You know, it might take patience, determination. You have to have the right intention. That's very important. It's not something out of, you know, curiosity or hobby, or something you want to use for your own interest, for, like, you know, money or fame. Or it's something that it's a spiritual learning. It's a path of growth, and it takes effort, it takes patience. And I can say that many people around the world communicate with them, more than I know, but I know already hundreds, including some several who have started with the advice and teachings I've been sharing. So it is all in our interest to develop interspecies communications, especially with higher intelligence, non-human intelligence. And it's also basically the basis of shamanism. In most tribes around the world, shamanic practices lead us to communicate with non-human intelligence, starting with plant life, animals, even stones, as well as non-human humanoids, like the hairy humanoids or the star beings. The most universal language in the universe is what we call telepathy. Telepathy means to feel at the distance. So it's a bit similar to remote viewing in a way, but we can practice telepathy in our everyday life. People who talk to their plants, for instance, or sing to their plants, will have the much nicer plants. It's the same with animals, whether they are your domestic pets or wildlife, birds flying around your house. If you talk with them, if we talk with them and send loving thoughts, peaceful, we welcome their energy, we thank them, we bless them, they will feel it and they will answer back. And I often tell people to learn telepathy, practice with the animals. You will see it really works. When we talk about higher intelligence, those people, the star beings, the Sasquatch, if they meet from all around the universe, let's say, different planets, what language do they speak? They speak in telepathy. They can reach each other's mind and thoughts and feelings, and they can project images, they can project feelings, they can project words. And so they know each other's intention and message through telepathy. And that's how most of the communication happens for me when I mean about higher level. Of course, they also build structures in the wood, tree structures, arch trees. You can hear them knock on trees, talk. You can hear them clap stones. You can hear their voices. They do a lot of vocals, whether grunts, growls, screams, because they can give you a information download all at once. It's like putting a new hard drive or disk into a computer, and the whole story, the whole information, and with images and sound is all included. And then it's ours, for our rational mind, to analyze, decode, and process the information download they give us. So that's how my books came out. And there are many things that I wrote in those books. I had no idea where it came. I mean, what was the basis of it, and which I found later a lot of confirmations from other sources, whether ancient sources or modern. So also telepathy can be developed, it can be practiced, and they are very, very good teachers at that. As an elder species, the Sasquatch have had a longer time to evolve and develop their skills and knowledge and wisdom. They also have kept in contact with the star people, the star beings that have been watching over the universes for eons, since creation exists. And I like to call them star elders, because there are many types of star people. They are not all always benevolent or caring. There are, military factions, and there are different parties and intentions. But the ones I call star elders are spiritual elders who watch over the world, who take care and protect. So the Sasquatch have been kept in contact with them, and they also join the star elders in their councils and in their spaceships. They can travel on many planets, and there are many, many stories of people who witness spaceships and Sasquatch at the same time or around the same time, same area. I have had several encounters myself, often with other people, where we would see either first a Sasquatch or first a spaceship, and then next thing we see the other. And it's not just coincidences, because there are reported waves in certain towns or remote areas where for months, sometimes people see flying crafts and hairy humanoids around the same time. So there's a lot of evidence, and it's surprising that nowadays still many in the so-called BigFoot world don't want to hear about UFOs, and many in the UFO alien world don't want to hear about Sasquatch. But there is a greater and greater disclosure and understanding. And it started since, the 60s. There was already articles linking the UFOs to the Sasquatch. It's just becoming more and more accepted and widespread, because there's more and more reports coming out, more researchers, more documentation. And it's not only it makes sense, but it also brings a lot of explanations about who they are and what's their real purpose. That's pretty much the connection that star elders and Sasquatch have around the world. And it's nice to see that nowadays researchers in UFO and BigFoot and paranormal and psychic phenomena, they tend more and more to converge. I've noticed in the last few years, because all these phenomena are interrelated, interconnected, and they explain each other, basically. We can never understand the star beings or the Sasquatch if we don't understand interdimensionality, that there are multiple dimensions, not just the physical plane. And there are also psychic powers that can seem like magic or impossible if we don't understand, but they do exist if we learn about them. Yeah, I'm from Canada. I live in Eastern Canada, in Quebec, and travel around 20 countries, including Europe, Australia, and all the Americas. But there's stories we hear about on just about every continent. Some are more documented, better known than others. But in Europe, there's a long history of hairy humanoids. It goes back to ancestral legends. Sometimes they're called bear people. The trolls. There's so what the most famous name for them in the Middle Ages was the wood wolves. And there's different variations in different languages and regions. And we can see on many churches and castles, ancient paintings, carvings, those wood wolves, those hairy wild men and women that are represented in the art. There's reports since the Roman Empire and the Middle Ages, such beings being captured or hunted. We can think about Beowulf, who went and killed a troll. And there's also 200 families, noble families in Europe, have the wild man on their coat of arms. So it was a very well-known phenomena in European folklore until the late Middle Ages, the age of reason, when the scientific mentality, rationalism took over. All this was discredited as myths and legends. So from then, we hear less about them in Europe. However, there are still nowadays reports. There are experiencers I've talked with in Europe who have had encounters. There are research groups, namely in Great Britain. There's a few videos that have come out from from Hungary, from Spain, from Russia. There's a lot. From Corsica, a few places where we still hear reports. And so they are there, but they're probably, because Europe is more densely populated, there are wilderness, but smaller or less. So they are seen less often than they used to. They like to, they love us human, but they have to stay away most of the time nowadays because we forgot about them. And the first reaction people have usually is fear. And very often people will take out a gun and shoot at them. And very often also we see dozens and dozens of reports when there's a sighting in a town somewhere, they put up a hunting party to go catch it. So that's why they have to stay away from us unless we're ready and we come with the right attitude and approach with respect, with peaceful intentions, and we come as brothers and not as hunters. I don't remember hearing about reports in the Czech Republic. But there must be. Well, if we go into the Middle Age, there's definitely there must be some wood wolves depiction in the art and statues or paintings. But I know there was a report from Hungary, which is, I guess, not so far. And there's so nowadays it's pretty much, I think, for the Europeans, time to connect again with those ancestors, those relatives, because there are. I know people who have contacts there, in Belgium even. In Poland, there's reports. And there's so I'm not. I couldn't say about the Czech Republic. I don't have that information, but I would think there's probably some. There is one universal truth in the universe that can be verified or backed by a fact. That's what I call wisdom, ancestral wisdom. That if you go to, for instance, tribes people from the past on all continents that didn't have any contact between them, they came up with the same understanding on some issues. For instance, life has to be protected and maintain the balance, the harmony with the natural environment. And there is this spiritual reality, other dimensions where our souls travel. And there are also other non-human intelligent beings. That we find these things in just about every ancient cultures around the world in different words. So what is the universal truth is basically things that can be verified. It's not based on stories from long ago or myths that were repeated over and over and sometimes changed and translated, and that turns into man-made religions. Religions, which means to relate, to connect. Historically, human religions have been used as an instrument of control over populations, often bringing a fear of threat or punishment if you don't behave and follow the rules. We can go back to the first human civilizations when there was, as soon as there was a priest and a king, there was rules to follow, and but then the more a religion develops into a human society, the more it gets away from this universal truth, becomes more and more specific. Like you have to believe in this character, in that book, in that wording or doctrine, and if you go off, you're bad. That's not how the true wise people, and I refer also to the Star Elders, how they relate to each other. They don't have to convert, like you have to believe like me, or you have to prove anything. Or when they meet, they share their knowledge, their understanding, and they contribute to the collective wisdom. They accept the wisdom that enlightens, enriches the collective wisdom. And they don't compete over who's right or wrong. That's not leading anywhere else than conflict and religious wars, as we have seen in our history. So it is important for us humans to remember also beyond our limited human paradigm, our limited human cultures and understanding, that there are other forms of intelligence, sometimes very superior to ours. And to relate to them, we cannot try to convert them or impose our own religion or beliefs on them. For instance, if you're a Sasquatch, or if you're, let's say, a reptilian being, whatever, a different type of humanoid, you would not visualize God, let's say, as a human like, right? Why would a Sasquatch worship a human prophet or human-like godly figure, anthropomorphic gods made in the image of men? So, of course, we have sacredness, we have sacred teachings in our human traditions that, and some characters that have left their knowledge, their wisdom, that we still honor, and that's in every culture. So we have to be careful about remaining universal, not specificity, trying to impose my way to the others, because we'll never reach a greater harmony. So for the Sasquatch and star beings, that's what they watch us go, they observe, and they will share the wisdom we can accept. But they're not gonna try to convert us to another, to any way of doctrine to follow. There are many sacred places, sanctuaries, where they bury their dead, or where they have their children, or they might make stone monuments sometimes to mark a special event, either alone or with the star elders they work with. And every being that has a spiritual consciousness has a sense of sacredness. We can recognize that some things are like holy, like they bring us healing, they bring us knowledge, ancient sacred sites, even that our human ancestors built, are often reminding us these things. When we come to a stone circle or a dolmen or places like that, we're invited to reconnect with the sacredness, with this sense of holiness, and healing. They're very good places to do ceremonies and to ceremonies, prayers, meditation, always to reconnect with the sacred. there are many stories that they have been helping humans or star beings in building the ancient megalithic constructions. One good example comes from the Veda, the Ramayana, in which the so-called ape people, they're called the Vanara, which means forest people, help Rama to go rescue his wife Sita, that had been abducted on a flying chariot by the king Ravana, who was a reptilian bloodline. That's a very old text, thousands of years old. And what the Vanara, the ape people, did, they built a big stone bridge between India and Sri Lanka. That's about 30 to 60 kilometers long. And today we still can see this stone bridge with megalithic stones, up to 1 ton or more. Many stones bear the inscription Lord Rama. And it was Hanuman, who was the leader of the Vanara, who was known as a monkey god, who conducted these work. So we have there a very clear, obvious proof that this legend is true. It's a true story. How long ago, nobody can say. But there are also other places in the world where they have helped construct such megalithic sites. And some, talking about megaliths, there's a lot of megalithic structures that are still buried and unexplored or ignored because they don't fit in the academic time frame. There's dolmens and standing stones in North America, in Brazil. There's dolmens in India, in China, in Japan. There's even pyramids in places they're not supposed to be, like the Australian outback or the Arizona desert by the Grand Canyon. So we have all those evidences that show there's been civilization for millions of years on our Earth. And many even predated us human. They were there before the humans were created. They were non-human civilizations. So the Sasquatch has been taking part and interacting and contributing with all these civilizations that were here before us, and as well with our early ancestors and Lemuria and Atlantis and the other continents. In recent times, there has been an exponential increase of reports, encounters all around the world, and especially in North America and Australia, as far as I know, but it must be the same in Asia. There has been an increase because we had forgotten them in our cultures for centuries, if not thousands of years already. And we see what happened with us, human. We have been developing technologies that are harmful and destructive. We have been going into militarist societies and economy of war. So all these things are very detrimental. And now we have weapons like nuclear and worse that can destroy the whole, not only ourselves, but the whole life on Earth. So they have been reaching out more and more, as we have seen with UFOs. The UFOs, there's dozens and dozens of reports that UFOs have appeared over nuclear facilities, military bases where they have nuclear missiles, and they come, and sometimes they even take over to show they can control, they're above those technology, but they also tell a warning that do not go that way. Do not go orient your society that way, because other planets have been destroyed before us. Like we can talk about Mars. There's faces and pyramids and high radioactivity, just like on the moon. So they are definitely reaching out more and more at this time, and there's several examples we can give. For instance, on the Navajo reservation, which is the largest indigenous reservation on the planet, and which is larger than Belgium. There's the last 20 years or so, there's so many people reporting UFOs and Sasquatch that they had to create a special police corps to investigate these phenomena. Another sign of we see is like growing public interest. More and more conferences, conventions, literature, TV shows, documentaries. It's becoming more, it's not a topic that it's gonna die or be forgotten. It's becoming more and more present in our consciousness, in our collective consciousness. And for instance, in the Pacific Northwest, in North America, it's about 36% of the people believe they exist. And around, for all of North America, it's about 1/4. So it's more than it used to be 30 years ago. Because why? Because there's so many reports, serious researchers, there's scientists involved, there's people who know someone who had an encounter. So if it's your friend or your cousin, you cannot say they're making it up or lying, what you know. So it's a sign that we're evolving in a good direction, and which we call disclosure. Disclosure is just to end the censorship, the lies, the cover-up, and to bring forth the information that we need to hear. And disclosure, in this case, is simply the acknowledgement that we're not alone. We've never been alone. And we have a lot to learn from our non-human relatives. They can live much longer than us humans. And some can become immortal, just like some of us human. If we live a holy life and the dharma, doing the right virtuous path, then yeah, some of us can reach immortality, and some of them. Otherwise, I know that my main Sasquatch guide, I have met dozens of different individuals by now, in North America and Australia. But my main Sasquatch guide who inspired me the most of the channel in the Sasquatch Message to Humanity, he gave me the name Camus. And I asked him how old he was, and he said, over 10,000 of your years. And it does not really matter at that point, you know, more or less. It's just they can live also between interdimension. They can go in planes where they don't have to age, to eat, to feel tired, to get sick, all those things. So that surely gives them a much longer lifespan than if they were always in the material plane like we are. Yeah, people often ask for photos and footage, and there are even audio recordings. Yeah, I can say I have some over the years. And what happens, and I have seen a lot that some people sent me sometimes some amazing photos or footage, and very often the authentic people, they want to keep it private. They don't want to show off, and you know, there's in the thing, you meet a lot of skepticism, and a lot of people who deny because they don't have any of that information, and they will think you're making it up, and I can say for such people who choose to, you know, deny, there will never be enough evidence. You can show them, you know, thousands of photos and stuff. It will always debunk it. So it's not the point to try to prove. What I've been doing is I document if they allow me, because most of the most intense encounters, you don't even want to film or take photo. You just want to live it. It's a connection. It's a spiritual experience. Sometimes I've tried to film, and they kind of tell me, that's a bit interfering. They might allow it. Sometimes they let me record their speech. Or sometimes I don't even think anything, and they appear on photos. And I'm talking for myself, but I know a lot of people, it's the same thing that happens. They might just appear on your photo. You don't know. You didn't see them before. Or you might, other times, you see one, you take a photo, and there's nothing. They don't show up. Once I was looking at a grandmother Sasquatch, and I asked if I could film, and she laughed. She said, try. Turn on the camera, and she was not showing up on the camera, but I could see her very clear. So people who are after physical evidence, there's another thing a lot of people have been asking for a corpse, since decades, as long as we don't have a corpse on the table, those things don't exist. Well, let me tell you something. There's been 5,000 years of documentation of hairy humanoids being captured and killed. There's since antiquity, Middle Ages, the colonial days, when they started to colonize Australia and North America, for instance, they were often running into them, putting up a hunting party to go kill them. There's cases where the corpses, or even live ones, were sent to universities. One was kept for 4 years on a display on Vancouver Island. Another one was sent to the Barnum circus, never, but they all disappear. All the evidence disappears. People ask, where's the evidence? It's hidden. It's there, but it's hidden. Then in the 50s, if we talk about, there's been international major expeditions by United States, Russia, China, Great Britain, France, Japan. All these countries put up some major hunting expeditions to catch either the Yetti, the Yetti, or the Sasquatch. And they found evidence. They found plenty of evidence. Even the Chinese official report is that there's enough evidence to know they exist, but we don't know what they are, basically. So people ask, where's the evidence? It's all been gathered, collected, but hidden. The other example is when a dead Sasquatch is found. That happens. Or even a live one. Then you see the black helicopters moving, secret operation, unmarked vehicles. They cordon off the place so public can't see, and they try to get them, and often they do. So that's why, when people ask, oh, where's your photo? It's like, when you're having a conversation with a friend, do you always take their photo? Or, when you listen to the birds, for instance, are you going to record everything? The story is that there's never going to be enough proof, even if there are plenty of evidence. But the point is to experience and not to try to prove, because will never be mainstream with this kind of information. There are many reports in North America, especially the North and the West, as well as in Tibet and China and Australia. As far as I know, there are many reports, and also legends from Europe, where the hairy humanoids would sometimes abduct a woman, or most often, or simply develop a connection with an individual and will bear children. There are ways to procreate that don't even require intercourse, because the genetic code is an information that can be transferred in many ways, including through consciousness, or like experiments have shown on a laser or other kinds of waves that can transmit the DNA code into the womb, or into the egg of a woman or any animal. There are several stories that I don't think I have time to tell them all, but there's definitely in Washington State, there's a man who's known as the son of Sasquatch. He's first generation hybrid, and he's 6'6". In Australia, I met a woman who had long hair around her wrist, Aboriginal woman, and she told me she had been chosen by them before she was born to communicate with them. And if I get closer to me, well, I learned, because I have done my genealogy, and I can go back to the 1400 in Europe, but on my native side, it's not really well documented. I had 4 generations back, and I went to where my great-great-grandfather was born, because I found that when he was, it was in an old newspaper, when he was around 8, him and his twin brother were found in the wilderness in the Northwest Territories by the Great Slave Lake by some native Cree trappers. And they were living in the hut of branch, wearing rawhide and speaking no human language. So the native trappers adopted them, and they grew in the community and became my great-great-grandfather became a leader there. And when I met, I contacted my native cousins, and I was curious about this story, and she's the family historian, and she said, we have Sasquatch in the family. So I know from this that I'm 1/32nd Sasquatch myself. And it's not so rare. People say, wow, if you go in the tribes who had, generations and thousands of years of interaction with those beings, there are many stories like that. They just don't talk too openly in public about it because most people will not believe or ridicule. But myself, it's been part of my mission. They've been asking me to bring out this kind of information. Some people have mentioned since I have Sasquatch ancestry, that's made me favorably predisposed to connect and communicate with them.
Yeah,
I would say it helps, but it's not necessary. And also, we probably all have Sasquatch ancestry, us modern humans, but different levels, maybe way back. But I believe we all have had some Sasquatch ancestors at some point. So the Sasquatch are relatives, and they basically want to help us remember. Since they are our elders, they have a longer experience and greater wisdom, greater understanding of the universe. So they can help us to reach a greater understanding and wisdom as well. And what they ask, what they wish, is that we stop fearing them, stop treating them like monsters, like they are devils or they are dangerous cannibals, because that's very far from the truth. There's very few exceptions that can apply, but in thousands and thousands of encounters, maybe 1 or 2 was violent, and often they were chased and shot at, so it was self-defense. So what they want us to is basically approach them with respect and connect with our hearts, with our souls, help each other in caretaking this planet, because we us as humans, modern humans, Homo sapiens sapiens, have done a very sloppy, bad job at keeping the planet. We've been destroying it very fast. And if we don't change pretty quick, we also are going to become an extinct species. So basically they ask us, they say, come back to your heart, to your soul, feel empathy for all life, and become an elder, a caretaker, protector. And they will help us in the process. Well, we are all on this spaceship, mothership we call Mother Earth. And it's a big, vast, wonderful planet to visit. We will never have enough of one lifetime to see it all. Yet it's a very small part of the immense cosmos. Billions of planets and stars and galaxies, trillions. So to expand our consciousness, we have to remember we are part of this big network. It's even connected by electromagnetic highways, like a spider web. There's also consciousness involved. There's some everything we do resonates in the cosmos. So if we want, as humans, to become a level 1 civilization, a planetary civilization, we have to learn to live in harmony with our planet and to take care of it and use the non-destructive industries and energies. From there, we can start thinking to go visit other planets and become a level 2 civilization or a stellar civilization. And there are, of course, in this process, many other species, intelligent species that will help us, that are actually guiding us on this process. It's up to us, humans, but it has to be started on an individual level to say, I'm going to do these steps and open my consciousness. And then it makes ripples. But it has at some point to become collective if we want to protect and save the world and save also the ancient wisdom that is getting lost. It has to become a collective responsibility. And this is each our own individual responsibility to bring this consciousness and make it collective.